Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Ground Up Podcast. My name is Matt Walton, here with my co-host Matt Huber. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing amazing, man. It's been a week full of meetings, a week full of us trying to get meetings off our plate, but to do that, we're taking more meetings, but it's been a great week, man.
Hey, sometimes meetings are necessary, and hopefully we can make them as to the point as possible, as we should as leaders here. We have a guest today, someone we've spoken to before already and had a great conversation with. Someone we're looking forward to having more of a conversation about what we're looking to dive into here and what he's currently diving into. We have Mason, the founder and CEO of CrowdSnare, who's looking to help revolutionize or jump into this AI revolution that we're having right now with AI chats, voice systems, and automotive and a bunch of different industries. Mason, how you doing?
How's it going? Good, man. Doing
Awesome.
well. Happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. We already talked about the amazing guitars in the background. We already established that Mason is a shredder at the guitar as well, on top of all the other talents he has. But Mason, give us a background on what you guys are currently doing over at CrowdSnare and the AI company.
Whew. Well, we are knee deep in this AI arms race, as we spoke about earlier, and we're ultimately taking on enterprise level clients because what we found in our kind of foray into this industry is that it's just as much work to do business with an enterprise organization as it is to do a small SMB local.
Sometimes less.
Yeah,
Sometimes less.
exactly. Exactly.
You have the bigger clients who are great, and then the ones that just sign that check for 50 grand and like, all right, just take care of me. And then you have the small clients who sign a check for 1K and like, I want you to be on a phone call every 5 seconds.
Exactly.
Go ahead. Sorry to cut you off, Mason. Go ahead.
No, and so just more or less innovating there. We're constantly improving on our conversational component because we believe that not only is client acquisition and client targeting the key to winning the AI arms race, but it's innovating in terms of conversationality and conversion, right? Because if you can get an AI to automate something, that's one thing, but if you can get an AI to automate something that drives revenue, then obviously that's the more ideal scenario. So with that said, that's our main focus currently. And then it's kind of, we have a little skunk works because we're always looking to the future. We see this kind of industry really being probably the next 4 years is really the right time for us. So we're trying to iterate at a rate that we haven't been ever able to do before without AI. And so it's kind of innovating our internal systems as well as innovating external systems. So it's really we're kind of always under the hood, so to speak. Right? We're never happy with the status quo. We're always innovating. And so we have a saying here in the business, today is the worst AI is ever going to be. And
Wow.
we really believe that.
Let me ask you this, Mason. So I know you've been doing this for a while. This is not your first day of this process. First off, when did you make the full jump into this? When did you create this? And what was the idea that made that jump towards this direction?
So we jumped in late 23 is when we jumped into the AI business. I had some time in between agencies that I had started and sold, and I'm just always curious and trying to create things for myself. And so when ChatGPT started coming out and the buzz was around that, we started kind of building and playing internally. I brought some of my old people from the agency days in to kind of help me build something out. And then we just went and did kind of test pilot programs with a couple of old clients, and went well. And believe it or not, we actually, in order to kind of, because you don't know what you don't know, and let me just touch on something. That's the key to this industry is everybody doesn't know. Right. And so it doesn't matter where you came from, what your expertise was. Oh, I built this huge agency. I did this. AI is the great equalizer. It levels the playing field. If you are willing to learn and adapt and grow, then anyone could be a rock star in this industry. So with that said, again, kind of jumping into the kind of how we got into this industry, we started doing those test pilot programs, had great results. And we just said, look, we see this business, growing quicker than any of our other agencies that have ever come before. So we think we really got something here. Formed the company. We actually ended up buying a course, right? Of all things, even though we have agency experience and people might think, oh, that's silly. We bought a relatively benign course, but we took one thing away from it, which was, as a salesman myself, I always want to reach out via commerce, kind of the initial message. And in that course, the one thing we took away was start a conversation to get to a conversion, which gets to a sale. And so that has been kind of the primary, rather, driver of our success, is that when we approach AI, we never approach it from a commerce only perspective. We approach it from a conversational relationship building perspective. And so that's kind of a long-winded way of saying we jumped into the industry a year ago, and we've been continuing to innovate and bring on clients left and right and center since then. Yeah.
So you said you started and sold a couple agencies. I'm curious, what type of agencies were those that you ran, and how those exits go?
So they were the traditional agencies. So I basically followed the path that most people do in that agency world. It's the self-taught kind of initiative. If you can learn it and prove that you could do it, you could do it. But those agencies were SEO, social media marketing, ad management. I did the last agency, which is the most that I've kind of brought into this, was a conversion rate optimization agency, because I built those other agencies, sold those books of business, didn't really like that I couldn't exit at a multiple because it was an agency. So I figured this is what I'm good at. I'd always wanted to start something like I've started now, which actually has proprietary technology. But the last agency that I was in was a conversion rate optimization agency, because I was more thrilled with the idea of taking someone's current lead base and driving double the revenue, rather than going to them and saying, hey, look, spend more money with me. Because that's the traditional ask in an agency is look at my social proof, trust me ultimately, and then give me your money to drive more revenue for you, and hope and pray that I actually am going to deliver for you. Oh, and by the way, I really have no control. It's as good as just a hope and a dream. It may work, it may not, right? Ads are ads, SEO is SEO. If we know anything about agency days, you can't guarantee a first spot on Google. You can't guarantee a highly converting ad. You can, you see what I'm saying? So with the idea of converting more with existing traffic just by improving those funnel processes, right? So it kind of, you see how that kind of leads right into where AI would ultimately go anyway. So I think that's probably what's been the biggest driver of our success, in addition to those little bits and pieces. And if I could really emphasize anything here, AI is really a battle of millimeters, because the most innovative things that have driven our conversion through the roof have been things that you never would think are going to do these kinds of things. So I say nothing is too small, nothing is too innocuous to test, 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 test. And also, don't be afraid to take advice, because one of our biggest improvements that we've made to date is the ROI of our follow-up processes. We actually were caught in a doom scroll, as we all do these days. And I saw that FBI negotiator. I can't place his name right
Chris
now.
Voss. Chris,
What's
Chris,
that?
Chris Voss.
Chris Voss, there you go. And he mentioned the fact that if you wanted to get a significant other, a family member, a friend, anyone to reach back out to you, simply say, have you given up on X, whatever that is? Don't say another thing. And he's like, I guarantee you it works. And so we said, you know what? Let's just add that to the bump message. Let's see what happens. Our conversion rate, response rate rather, went up by 33.5% overnight by adding that bump sequence.
See, I told Matt that. That's my line. Is like, did you abandon this project? That's what he usually says, something along the lines of that. Because people want to immediately correct. And if you give them a way to say no, they feel more powerful and they feel like they need to correct. And then if you have the salesmen that go and that run through and they ask the yes questions over and over again, are you looking to buy now? And they ask to tee them up for another yes. And he shows that it doesn't really work that well, because they don't feel they see what's coming and they understand that it's a sales process. But if you get them to say no, they feel in control and in power of the conversation. And then you find that and use that to your advantage. That's kind of what he talks about. Matt Mason's kind of going through a little bit about what we're going through here, what he went beforehand. He went from selling a service to now an actual product. Walk me through your thought process on this, Matt. How we're making this transition here, just like obviously Mason had to go through too.
Yeah, I think it's an evolution. I think that when we first started our business together, it was, like you said, a service-based solution. We offered staffing. Obviously, we still have staffing as a foundation to our business model today, but the itemized and productized aspect of what we're now offering within an offer of a product is just a very different proposition, in my opinion. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it as simple and digestible and as easy for our end user as possible. I love what Mason said in regards to the don't be afraid to just test on your test and test on your test. Mason, I come from a background of selling marketing, not running an agency, but selling marketing for many, many years in the dealership world, working at Dealer On, Team Velocity, and all these other companies. And one of the things that I saw so many companies unwilling to do, that companies that I worked at saw the best value out of, was just the benefit of an A/B test. And to the point of what you guys were saying earlier around that I don't remember the exact language that you just used, Matt, but my best email in my email sequence and cadence that I've always worked is my fourth email in the process where I would say in a subject line, last chance, and then the email would just say, I'm going to assume the lack of response is due to a lack of interest. I'm going to stop reaching out to you unless you tell me otherwise. And that would garner both the biggest open rate and the biggest response rate, and would lead me in to a pretty easy conversation from there. And so that level of indifference helped a lot. I think that learning those things, applying them into what we're doing now through testing, is a great way for us to approach it.
Yeah. So I mean, Mason, you're going through this process here, obviously, of transitioning to a service-based one. And you guys are working a lot primarily with the automotive industry. Now, Matt
Yes.
has said multiple times on this, and we all kind of agree with that. Automotive industries are the slowest moving people when it comes to making changes within the industry itself. You know, I mean, think about when Carvana came on the scene and how everyone just wanted to attack Carvana of the way they're doing things, but they ended up being pretty successful for the most part, I think, from what I've heard. But adopting technology of what we're going now, it seems like it's inevitable. You have to keep up, or you're going to get lost. And people think AI is coming, but no, AI is here. It's already happened consistently. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing here to break into the automotive industry.
Whew, that's a big answer, but it's funny. I do have a little anecdotal story because you mentioned Carvana. So, and I tell everyone that will listen, I actually thought of Carvana back in '08. Like, I wrote a whole business plan called Dodson Motors. I went and pitched it to anyone who would listen to me. Car dealers, I went door to door, and believe it or not, they were like, "Yeah, that's never going to work. That's never going to work. There's no such thing as that. This is an industry that's lasted for this long. We're not going to do that." And then gave up on it because I'm, lifelong entrepreneur. And lo and behold, Carvana comes out, and I'm like, I knew I was onto something. And I think that I just want to touch on something. I think the other thing that is imperative is to understand the opportunity that's in front of you. One thing that I've had the ability to do is identify markets and bubbles. And I think for people right now that think, it's too late for the bubble, it's too late for the AI thing, stop that. Stop that. Get in now, immediately, while the bubble's available, because the barrier to entry is low, right? It's education, it's time, it's commitment. And I just want to say, for anyone that's kind of like, oh man, I wish I could take advantage of this, wish I was been there as an entrepreneur, get off the fence, right? It's try. Even in that Carvana, I was, way earlier, but it came out, and that kind of was something that let me know, okay, hey, look, you clearly have insight. That wasn't a fluke, because it happened kind of again and again, and I wasn't able to take advantage. And this is, again, I want to go back to the great equalizer. Anybody can come in here with a blank slate and innovate, right? And I think that's one of the most incredibly exciting parts of AI. So to go into the automotive side, right? We jumped into automotive because that's my background. My first gig was a porter at a Chrysler Jeep Dodge store in Houston, Texas, which is no longer there. It's a Kia store now. And basically worked my way up through the sales floor and found that the car business, while I was good at sales and was at the top of the board, usually month in, month out, it was the things that were it just didn't make sense to me. I'm a little bit of a unique character, if it hadn't already come across in the video. And like, when my manager told me to stick around for bell to bell, which at this point was 9 to 9, for the no days off, I was like, well, are we getting more leads? And how do we justify this? Just we need to be here for show-ins, for walk-ins, and it just things like that, the kind of archaic way they like to sell. I'd always kind of envisioned at that time, like, a way to solve this problem, and envisioned that the automotive industry would inevitably become an appointmentized business of real, true sales professionals that, could show up like a lawyer, could show up like an accountant. At least that's what I wanted, to be a sales professional, and realized it was never going to happen, and I just needed to move on. So that's when I went to the tech industry, but I always had that idea, and that's what ultimately gave birth to CrowdSnare, because we built the product based on automotive sales first. We basically built that version, that thing that I thought would exist. I brought that into fruition, right? So it could book appointments, it could answer all of the kind of pre-purchase questions, it could show inventory, it could talk about inventory, it could pull finance applications, it could do soft credit pulls, all of the kind of data enrichment and lead management side. And then it would basically book the appointment, let me do the best part of the sales job. Earn the money, do the close, do the foursquare, get to human interaction. And ultimately, that's what we're all trudging along through the follow-up to get to anyway, right? And that's what gives us the thrill as a salesman. Any true core dyed-in-the-wool salesperson, if they tell you that closing isn't the funnest part, like, yeah, walk from them.
No, it's
So
funny you brought that up about hanging out from 9 to 9 with the bell and everything like that. Because me and my wife have been searching for a new car, and we walked into a dealership the other day to try one because we just want to test drive. We don't know exactly what we want, so we want to test drive a bunch of different ones.
Mhm.
And I'm not kidding. There was 6 salesmen that were all in that dealership. They were watching videos on their phone. Like
Yep,
they were all just so bored. And I was
yep,
like, your job looks like it sucks so bad that you
it
just have to
does.
sit there and just wait. And I was like, yeah, you're right. There's got to be a better way. I mean, Matt, you run this BDC company also, and you're having to drive appointments on there. And I don't know if you've talked to the managers over the BDC company in general, but I mean, are there people sitting around, or because they're actually being proactive and sending out a bunch of marketing and getting leads come in with the BDC company, are they actually busy over that side, would you say?
It's store by store. I mean, look, the reality is if the dealership that you went into where you got people sitting around, you've got poor manager. I don't know the store. I don't know the general manager, but there's the stores that I work with, they would definitely not have a person just sitting around hanging out. I mean, our team in a first 6 days of the overall, when a lead comes in, we make over 16 calls, 6 emails, and 6 texts in the first 6 days on every single customer. And some stores have 500, 1,000, 2,000 leads on a monthly basis. There is no room for people to be sitting around. There is no room for you to just be waiting around for that random customer walk in. But yeah, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of stores that do that, and they probably suck as a store. The reality of it is, and Mason's probably experienced that process too. The leader, I think, dictates and determines the outcome of that solution and what the team is doing. It's not a dealership industry. It's no different than walking into other places in the dealership world. You got to go find your food. The food doesn't come to your front door. And if you don't have a hunter mentality, you won't be a great dealer. You won't be a great employee at the dealership. You'll just be another guy who comes and goes. And there's dozens of those every single year at every store. Mason, that same experience you've had, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely. I was going to say if they weren't on their phones, because phones weren't as awesome as they are, or toxic, depending on where you're at.
They didn't play Snake on their,
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. For me, everybody was outside smoking, right?
yeah.
That's what it was.
There you go. So yeah, you're breaking into the automotive industry. Just take us through like a typical conversation that how it goes. I mean, I'm sure there's great conversations obviously when you're signing up clients, right? There's great
Absolutely.
ones that are like, they're for it. What are the objections that you're hearing consistently from um these automotive industries who are just struggling to make that change? Do you think what are the kind of the pushback you're getting right now?
Number one, I don't trust.
Before you answer that, Mason,
Okay.
because we had this conversation the other day, and I think you might have disagreed with me on this premise, which I hope you did, because I'd rather
Mhm.
us not agree with everything, and there's places we can find
Exactly.
disagreement, because I think that's more interesting than us just all agreeing with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So Matt, with the statement that we talk all the time how slow moving the dealership world is. I've been in the dealership space for 15 years. I remember like 12 years ago, I worked at a company called Pearl Technology, and at that time, we were trying to go with the retail program where somebody could buy the vehicle completely remote. And at that time, Amazon was already there. People were already buying things virtually, but that process just wasn't ready yet for the dealership. And we fast forwarded through 2020 when people couldn't go into dealerships. The digital retailing experience still wasn't ready, and dealerships weren't ready for it. And it's not that the technology wasn't ready. Dealerships weren't ready to adopt and put it into their business. In 2025 today, yes, we have exceptions of Dodson Automotive idea. We have exceptions of Carvana, but most stores still refuse to adopt to what the society adopts to. And my concern of AI is that there will be some industries, like the real estate industry we've found, that will have much faster adoption to it. My experience is automotive is slow to adapt because there are older mindset people who don't adapt to technology. Now, if I recall, you maybe disagreed with that premise that these dealerships will not push back on the idea of AI, but was I wrong? Or do you also agree that dealerships are slow and adoption is slow with technology?
I do agree with that. So in the
Okay.
interest of disagreement, yeah, I do agree because it's what we've seen. But I will push back slightly in that I think the approach is what gives them the most pause. I think
Okay.
that what we have found is that if you approach dealers with something that they already understand, are comfortable with, and are familiar with, in our case, private sale, for example, it was not something that initially popped out as clear an option to start with, as an example. So for me, we initially approached dealers with a performance-based approach, which said, we'll take old leads and we will, at our own expense, at our own time, effort, everything, we will book those with our AI into an appointment. We'll start with, something reasonable, say 500 to 1,000 leads. It allows us to test the lead data. It allows you to experience the product, and it ultimately drives revenue before I've ever asked you for a dollar,
But when
right?
you
Yeah.
said performance-based, you spoke Matt's language. He lit up. That's his thing.
Yeah, but you're going to be surprised with what he tells you next, though, Matt. You're going to be surprised.
Exactly. So we approach this, and we think this is gold. Every person on my team said we are gonna freaking blow up overnight. Like they're gonna buy this. They just don't see how we won't have 300 dealers per month for every month until we get them all. We approached this, and what we found is initially we got takers like we thought, not at the scale that we thought because there was a little pushback, but there was kind of this immense optimism around AI, this almost that created a confusion or blindness. So they're like, absolutely, let's go. But then quickly after that, the response was, it's unpredictable. We don't want to pay. Like, what if we sell 20 cars next month? And we thought, well, that's fantastic. I hope you do. And they go, no, that's not, because that's not the way our billing works. And everyone kept saying like it's too much and we don't want the unpredictability. And we kept trying to force feed it to them because we were saying, like, we're trying to get them out of their own way, and nobody would budge. We're seeing horrible burn rates in our business because we're going through advertising, we're going through, expenses left and right to bring salespeople on, and we're not getting any conversion. So we just finally gave up, threw our hands up, and said, you know what? On one of the business meetings, I tried to sell a dealership who I truly believed wouldn't benefit. So I was like, I want you to do the performance base because I ultimately wanted the rest of the group that I thought would benefit. And the guy kept fighting me, saying, I'm not doing performance, just give me a cost. And out of exasperation, I just said, $4,000. And he was like, okay. And I was like, hold on.
6.
Yeah. So Matt, to this point, like what Mason found out, and he was dumbfounded by this, and I would be the same way, right? Like, is dealership would rather spend 15 grand on a marketing spin that could maybe get them leads that maybe would then convert into a store visit that then maybe would be sold at a certain percentage, right? Like the average dealership that we do, a good dealer closes less than 12% of their overall leads. As in, a lead comes in, less than 12% of those leads come into a car being sold. A dealer would rather go with a $10,000 predictable budget without the predicted outcome than to say you only pay us on leads that your dealership has forgotten about. They won't touch. It is just a cherry on top. But because it was an unpredictable billing of just cherries on top, they were unwilling to do that because it was unpredictable. That to me is an old school, not new school, slow train of thought mindset. Is marketing is what we do. We put up that billboard and the radio ad, and I've got the commercial on the TV, but I am not having these leads that have been in my database for 6 months who nobody's calling because they're sitting there watching their phone. Mason came in and said, we'll call them. Your team's not. And only when we get a car sold or an appointment sold based off of these, then you pay us. We're not going to charge you a lot for it because we're in a testing mode to be able to proof this concept. And we'll revisit this in 6 months and sell you the real deal thing once we've proven our concept. They said, not so fast.
Well, what if you perform too well? Then what if that doesn't make any sense?
What if we sell too many cars and make too much profit? Then we have to pay too high of a bill that we didn't anticipate.
Exactly.
So it's something for us to learn, Matt, because I would have thought we go to a dealership. Like we've got a client, I was talking to one of our managers yesterday, and he said, when do we go pitch them the idea of our AI SDRs replacing our current staffed SDRs? And I said, I think the easy example is we keep our trained staff SDRs in their business and we say, hey, let's go to an open market. We will give you an SDR for free at no cost. We'll cover the cost of the call per minute cost, and let's just prove it to you. And when it proves to be better than our current team, then we can discuss what it costs after that. But that now tells me maybe he would say, I don't know, the thing you guys already are doing first works. Why put a monkey wrench in the process?
Yep.
Crazy, right? Your issue that you were talking about a little bit earlier, Mason, about, and Matt, you were saying too about how people just didn't adopt like the virtual selling thing, and still people don't. Because my way of buying cars now is like I'm gonna find out what car I want, and I'm gonna sit on my computer at home, and I'm gonna call every single dealership that has that car, and whoever gives me the best price is who I'm gonna buy from. I'm not, and every single one of them is like, "We'll just come in and let's talk about it." I'm like, I'm not stepping foot in that dealership until you tell me what your price is and where I'm at. My
Yeah.
best experience I ever had with buying a car was I called the person, they gave me the price I want, they drove the car to my house and signed my papers in my dining room table, and then left. It was the greatest experience I've ever had buying a car. And again, I'm not stepping foot in there because I did buy another car on CarMax where I sat down there with a guy who didn't know how to use the technology, and I sat there for 4 hours waiting for her to get this done. And I was like, this sucks. This is, a problem that we're changing. And so you're about to
So
say something.
Mason, let me ask you this, because I think this kind of ties right back into what we were just talking about. Slow to react, and I think a lot of that's due to the problem of the dealer not adjusting their way they do business to it. And I think that the reason why a digital retailing experience does is because I have basically programmed my customer base to say the only way I'm going to get the best deal is if I come into the dealership and sit down and haggle and negotiate with you. So I'm not trusting enough that you can go to my website, transparently give you the data and analytics, and then trust that we're going to be able to draw a differentiator in other places, right? So the only distinct difference we're going to say is come into our dealership. And that's why I think digital retailing's never worked. I think that the reason why AI in a full service capacity, and let's just talk about AI in regards to replacing a BDC, because I think it'll be a lot longer before AI can replace the floor. And I think you probably agree with me on that, right? There's a thing that will be more difficult to replace the floor with that, but the BDC side has an opportunity to be replaced immediately right now. But I think that the problem we'll have is that dealerships won't be willing to market the convenience and the transparency side that AI can bring. And the last point I'll make, and then I'd love to get your feedback on it, is the part that dealerships know but kind of act like it's not there is there's only two industries in our country that are less trustworthy than the dealership industry. And if we already know one of our biggest gaps is people and your consumers don't trust you, I think that if you position AI as a way to be more transparent, more trustworthy, more effective and efficient, then it can be positioned correctly that offers you such a dynamic differentiator than everybody else is going to be resistant. And the people who are early adopters to building their business around the transparency of AI offer a massive head start on the competition. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree, and I've got so many points here that came
Please.
in
I
and
saw you
out.
taking
Just
some notes, so
running
let's go through.
out. Yeah. And basically one of the things that I thought you touched on in terms of dealers not adjusting to the market, I think that's 100% true. They've always been slow to adjust. And what happens is you get these market movers who come in who basically force adjust them. And I think the most recent one would be like Carfax, right? So solved the distrust problem, or was trying to solve for that distrust problem. And I think that AI is the uniquely poised to do that again, is to basically bring that additional added trust back into the dealership where there, because we all can still feel it, right? Matt, you just talked about you don't even want to go in there because of that experience. And ultimately what I envisioned AI being was that kind of sentiment, because I share that sentiment. AI would be the great eradicator of people who feel like that, because it's now ready to roll when you are. It's there to overcome your objections with logic and things, just like a salesman does, but with low pressure, in the sense that it just lays out the data logically. And then if we think about it, we can afford it. If we're emotive and we're impulse purchaser, either way, we feel good about the purchase. And AI creates a situation where you don't leave dealerships thinking, I shouldn't have bought that, right? And that's the worst feeling that a customer, and that kind of perpetuates this I don't like dealing with dealers, because they're used to one or two of those experiences in their life. And
Yeah,
I
and the
think
reason why I do my method I do now is because I had that experience with the dealer. I got sold on a car, and as soon as I left that, I was like, I cannot believe I just did that.
and you
Now I never go in.
shame, and nobody likes to feel shame, right? And then and ultimately I think that's one of the other keys to our AI success, is that we leave this soft touch connection into the customer, so that there's an ability, or rather a pathway, for the customer to shamelessly reschedule, talk to to let kind of them know the situation without having to call and feel that human to human interaction, because text is so much more disassociative, right? We text breaking up with people when we don't want to face them, right? That's the known thing. And so the reality is that we're just applying the salve to the human condition. right? Using AI. We don't want them to feel shame. We want to make that process smooth as they go through. And when we leave the ultimate transaction at the end of it, we want to say, wow, like you said, that was the best car deal I ever had. And I think that truly, and it's unfortunate to say, that humans still ruin that. It's while humans are involved, they will always ruin it. And I can give you one subject kind of example that we did not too long ago. We launched a campaign for a nationwide RV company, and we did something for their Labor Day sale. And basically, we kind of we sent out more than we were supposed to on the initial outrun, because it went 500 leads, and they essentially booked like 36 appointments in, I think it was less than 2 hours of the campaign going live. And
Good
they
job.
initially, it was forced on them by the OEM, and so they didn't think it was going to work. They didn't want it. And when they saw the 36 appointments come in, they were absolutely dumbfounded. And we looked at the conversations they were having, and I kid you not, the AI was receiving pictures from clients going, "This is my family on the world's largest suspension bridge," and the AI was going, "That's a beautiful family," and then driving at the objective again. And as soon as all those appointments were made, every single salesman, they must have had an internal canned kind of system. The humans started copying and pasting canned replies, not even changing the placeholder data. So it would say first name instead of the name. And so it literally was a computer who seemed exactly like a human, and it was a human who acted exactly like a computer. I've never seen it before or since. It was an amazing day at work. I loved it, but I mean, it was a shock, and it was just interesting to see that humans, whenever they enter the process, that's where the process gets muddy in our experience.
No, what you said was great. I think that people need to realize that. We've said it multiple times when we're talking to AI people, is that AI doesn't make mistakes really, and they don't take days off. They don't get sick. They don't have to go to the doctor. They don't have to sleep. And so,
Exactly.
like, if you are running your business and you're relying on a lot of people, and that can be replaced by AI, the company
Exactly.
that is replacing them by AI is going to win. It's going to happen. And
Exactly.
I think the more experiences you have with people, the more you're like, the more you start to be like, all right, can you change this to AI now? Because I'd rather talk to somebody who can get what I need instead of causing the
Absolutely.
issues I was having right now.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And to go one step further, we have a saying that's at the company as well. We have a lot of sayings here. It says, "Not everyone will be replaced by AI, but anyone not using AI will be replaced." And so that's the reality. And I think one other kind of thing that I wanted to touch on as well is I think that AI companies, for the most part, see the value in the bubble of AI adoption, right? And I think from our perspective, and maybe you can speak to this, Matt, I think that they're operating in a purely predatory manner, in that they understand how dealers work. They understand where dealers are blindsided. They understand how to manipulate their dinosauric, kind of operations. And one of those ways is to create a check the box product that basically is, the dealer, because obviously dealers is very tribal. They kind of do what each other does. They don't even have to really see the product if their buddy does it, or if their competitor does it and they're in a rivalry. But I think that a lot of companies in that predatory manner are creating these products that exploit that vulnerability and lack of understanding, so that they can basically scale wide and hide in the billing. Because we all know that if you can get if you get a product priced roughly within sub $1,000, generally speaking, you can hide forever in their billing, because dealers are always looking what to cut as soon as they have a bad month. We all know that.
Yeah.
They have no loyalty, and more than that, they don't even know their numbers. So that's creating a bigger problem in the AI revolution, because they don't know their numbers. Their lead data is horrible, and so garbage in, garbage out. But that's a topic we can move on to. But ultimately, I think I want to finish here and say, with our competitors, they are basically building products to check a box,
Yeah.
and I think they're taking advantage of dealers.
Yeah, I think that one of the problems that every time you come out with a new industry or a new product is that you're going to have a lot of people who are fake, that aren't real, that don't know what to do. And Matt and I have this conversation all the time, which is, are there 100 other AI companies that can do what we can do today with what we're developing in AI, right? And we're not trying to conquer the world out here in AI. We've got a certain niche place that we would consider ourselves to be experts in. And I think that expertise comes in two different places. Mason, I think that you will agree with me on this. I think you have how you program is one level of expertise, and expertise number two is what you program. And so for us, having a really, really, really top tier intelligent how you program team to understand how to best formulate all of the pathways that need to go and to be as effective and as efficient as possible is step one. But then I think the true differentiator long term one, what will actually win in the long term of this, and that's getting through the fog of war, which we're in right now, which is the what you program. And I think that you have a lot of people who have a surface level of understanding and not a level of mastery of what to program. And that will be the dog shit that hurts the reputation and make the industry resistant to go full force into it. If we had the ability, which I'm not a big government guy at anyway, and I don't want to talk politics, but I'm not a big government guy. If we had the ability to require a level of restrictions on quality and proficiency before it was able to go to market, man, I have no doubt that maybe you today with your business and maybe ours in 6 months will be good enough to be able to stand the test of time based off of how it was programmed and who programmed what they programmed. And for us, like when we're focusing on building it out for the real estate side, or I'm focusing on building out for the SDR, and you're focused, Mason, on the automotive side, the expertise experience of knowing every way it could go, how it should go, how it shouldn't go, I think is a differentiator. Matt, what do you think on that? And where really what the product we're developing, where we're trying to make sure we don't cut those corners to get a good enough product out instead of making sure that we bring out the best product that could be available.
Yeah, like Mason, what you said, I mean, those companies that are trying to do things predatorily, they will get weeded out. It's not a matter of fact. I mean, there's a lot of people that come in different industries and they think, how can I make quick money? How can I quickly get in and make some money? And, and they think short term on that. One of the biggest things that we have to consider is, how are we going to be the best for our clients, not for ourselves? And if we can focus on the client experience on it and we grow that and with that as the head of our business, then we'll be okay. I have no problem with that. And obviously, if we're trying to just make our quick money, get in, do something sleazy, make our money and get out, we're going to get forced out eventually. And all these companies that are starting up right now will get forced out also, like Matt said, with regulation and things like that in place. So with us in general, we said this earlier, and actually we talked to on one of our other podcasts, a kid named Andy. He started a company when he was 17 in high school. He gave me a demo when he was at lunch in his lunchroom, and he gave me a demo, and I ended up buying his product, and it's been a great product. And he kind of moved out of that business and started a whole new one. And one of the things he's working on developing side of, he always says over and over again, is make it hard for us internally, so that way it's super easy for the clients. And that's kind of his motto. And he goes and he does so many test features. He reached out to us consistently and says, what do you think about this? And he's really getting the feedback from the clients over and over again to build the things that the clients need in order to help them grow and help their business. And he's focused on that, not saying, I think this person needs this, and then throws it in there. He's like, hey, let me get this from our clients and get this built off that. So with that forefront of thought, where I'm going to think about the client first and how I can build the best experience for them, so that way they don't have to think about it. It's done for them, especially with AI. I mean, the biggest advantage of AI is things are done for you. And you literally wake up and you close, if you have to close in deals in our situation here, or close sales or whatever. But every other thing that happened beforehand, where you would spend hours making calls or sending texts or doing all the follow-up, all that manual work you had to is now gone. You focus on the most important thing, which is getting the deals closed or business move forward. Those companies that focus on that and how to build the best relationship with the clients are going to be the one that wins.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think, though, the caveat I would make to that is there aren't many companies doing that. Like, because you said earlier that there's predatory companies, but they're not small companies. They're legacy companies. I won't mention names, but they're legacy companies that have hundreds of millions of dollars established into the business. They're creating the check the box. And I'll go so far as to say the DMSs and CRMs themselves are creating forced adoption through CRM superiority. Basically, you're in our CRM, our tentacles are already in your dealer, so we are going to force you. And this is the most pathetic part. Legacy companies who have been here for so long are pretty much purely developers, right? They're purely dev run. It's kind of like design by committee versus design by passion, right? The passion players are the people that are moving the needle. These big legacy players, that's the pathetic thing, that they've been here for so long and they have the resources to basically build something that none of us can touch. And the opportunity of a lifetime is their complacency. We will cut their knees out from under them because the players that are dedicated to quality and not designed by committee, but designed for excellence, designed for superiority, supremacy, which is our philosophy. We have a burn the boats mentality. And so with that said, it's those companies definitely will take shape, but I think it's going to be a hard fought battle to educate at least the automotive market on the difference between a check the box solution, because they're so wrapped up in the legacy branding of the whole thing of, oh, we've been here, we're $200 million a year, we're this, we're that, or we're this DMS or CRM you've used for the last 10 years, you should go with us. Nah, like the reality is that inevitably the dealers en masse will realize, due to the lack of results, they won't realize due to education, they won't realize due to understanding, they'll realize out of necessity that this is not working. And so the companies that are out there making it known, hey, are you tired of this junk? Come get the real thing. They're eventually going to capture all that market back that the legacy players have tricked these dealers into. And that's just my 2 cents about it. We're here for the long term.
I think it's interesting you say that, Mason, because once again, I think we're going to have a slightly different point of view on this.
Okay.
My experience in the vendor side of the dealership world, which you're in, I've been in, is that what I just heard you say, and maybe I misheard you, that these legacy people are dev-run businesses who have all the money in the world to develop whatever they want. Mm-hmm. I agree with they have all the money in the world. I disagree that they're dev-run businesses. In my experience, in the area of automotive I've been in, is that every company is about, am I the company who's going to acquire the company, or am I the company who's positioned to be acquired? That's the automotive industry is in general. And so you've got your Cox Automotive. There's not a product they have under their umbrella that they built themselves. They bought every single one of them, added it under their umbrella, and they have no clue how to develop. The problem they had 5 years ago, dealer.com, which was by far the 800-pound gorilla in the website side of space. They bought it and then don't know how to develop it and don't know how to innovate it. And so they're living 20 years in the past on website technology when you have companies building more advanced, up-to-date technology, and they are stuck with that people because they have so many people on there. So their solution is, I don't know how to build AI. I'm just going to go find the company who does it really well. I'm just going to buy them. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think the game that is going to be, the race that's going to be there, Mason, is you're going to have 5 to 10 AI companies that are going to come out of the framework. They're going to come out of the fray. And I would tell you, out of the 10, 8 or 9 of them are going to be nobodies today, or nobodies 2 years ago. There might be 1 or 2 of these big name people who've innovated, but most of these big name companies, in my experience, don't know how to innovate anymore. They know how to buy, maintain, and just reap the profit so that when a company that's ready to be acquired they go buy them. Mm-hmm. Mason, I assume that in building an AI business in the automotive industry, acquisition is part of the agenda. Is that something you feel comfortable talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We came into this business addressing kind of an earlier topic that we're talking about, the bubble, where I realized throughout my life I'd been part of several bubbles, was able to recognize them, but ultimately through one missing piece or another, whether it was my own ego, whether it was the number of different things, supply, money, whatever, I wasn't able to fully capitalize on those bubbles. And so like the most recent one, you can even say the Bitcoin, right? How many people play Monday morning quarterback with Bitcoin, right? That's the one that we almost know. Everyone says it's that bubble, but I'm talking like more specific, but we'll use that to frame it. I think that AI definitely is the bubble of the century. It's bigger than the dot-com bubble. Basically, in the next 4 or 5 years, life will not look the same. And I keep calling it an AI adoption arms race because it absolutely is. And I couldn't agree more with your statement as far as the players that will emerge in 3, 4, 5 years are virtually unknown today. And I think just in the same way Tesla came out of nowhere and put the OEMs back on their heels, ultimately there's an opportunity for AI to put the legacy people back in within that automotive industry back on their heels. But to answer your question, as far as acquisition, we came into this not with, well, let me take that back. We came into this with the idea that we should build the product that the market deserves, capitalize on it for the next 4 years, and then parachute and let someone take the long-term vision of what the future of AI looks like after the adoption is ultimately kind of coming to a close. Because we believe over the next 4 to 5 years, you're going to see, I would guess, above 70 to 80% adoption take rate of some form of AI, whether it's an appointment setter, an AI chat widget. I mean, I would even go so higher than that, but just to be conservative, I'll say roughly 80%, I would say, is a take rate of all businesses in all industries will be operating with some AI at that point.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more that it'll be that. I'm very interested to see. I would guess, and I hope I'm wrong, but I would guess if we forecast 5 years from now, maybe 10 at the most, that all of these legacy players that own all of the market share will continue to be the legacy players and will continue to own all of the market share. And there will be a couple of lucky people, a couple of a highly valuable builders who have gone out, established and built something better than everybody else. And I think that if you are not a product provider in the automotive space with the plan and focus around building first the best product, and then how can I position that product to be acquired, I think you're probably moving in a bit of a naive direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Matt, real quick before, and I got one other question before we wrap up. That's something you and I have not talked about. We're building AI for our current segment there. I assume you would not be upset if some major player comes to us and says, hey, I want to give you millions of dollars for your thing, and you go sit on the beach for the rest of your life if we can have and run your business. But there also gets a point where when you develop something that you think is yours, it's your baby, that giving that baby to somebody else to potentially run into the ground is there. What would you forecast for us, Matt? Knowing what we're trying to build, do you anticipate an acquisition? Do you anticipate us building something we run for the next 20 years? I mean, what do you think?
I'm kind of on the lines with, like, you and Mason are kind of saying the same thing in a way where it's the goal is probably acquisition, whether we want to or not. I mean, you think about it. You build something big enough, you're going to have those companies that are going to come and say, we'll buy you. And it's going to be hard to turn down millions of dollars to do that. And I don't think I'll ever, and you won't either, Matt, I know you won't, is to take our check and go sit on the beach. It's not going to happen. It's going to be like, all right, we'll take this check and go find something else to do. What's the next project we're going to build? Mason, I'm pretty sure you're probably the same way. You take that check, it's like, all right, what's the next venture? It's just, entrepreneur mindset of how we can build something else better, because the next thing will come up. Yeah, I mean, I know we haven't talked about it. Obviously our focus right now is let's build the best thing we possibly can. That's going to help the most people. And that's going to come down the line. We're going to have to make the decision. Hopefully we get good enough that we have a decision to make within that. Honestly, when that time comes, I don't think I would have a problem with saying, all right, here you go, take it, and we'll collect our check, and then let's start the next thing. Because what I think one of the biggest things for us, which is the most fun, is building it. And I think if we focus on that versus just running it, because when you run it, it's running. Hopefully you have it to a point where a team is running it for you and you're just kind of there.
Yeah.
The goal that, obviously when it gets to that point, selling it wouldn't be the problem. It would be now, all right, let's find something else we can put that time and effort and energy into, and help our mind grow and build something else on the next one. That to me would be more exciting than just sitting on a business and running it for a while.
You know, it's funny when you say the build it versus running it, man, that's a hard realization that I learned later in my professional career, is how much more I enjoy the building than the running side. Like, I'll give you guys a funny story around that. Like, so I still play video games every once in a while. I know it's kind of sad as a 42-year-old guy. I still play video games every once in a while, but almost all of the games I play are sports related games, right? So anybody that knows me knows I'm a sports junkie. I was an athlete growing up. Now I'm just an old man who likes to watch all the sports you could imagine. Right. And when I play video games, that's all I do as well. But I actually don't ever really play the sports video game. What I find myself doing, Matt, and I think you know this, we've talked about this, is I go get the worst team in the game. I go sell all the best players. I go get a bunch of draft picks. I go draft a team, develop a team, scout teams. I go build a farm system up in baseball or a youth academy in FIFA, and I build a world-class team. But by the time I make them a team that wins the championship, I'm bored. I'm selling that business to that big 800-pound gorilla we're just talking about, and I'm cashing in on that, and I'm going back to that AA school in college football, and I'm restarting my scouting division, right? That's what I know gets me excited. That's what I know I'm passionate about. Now, Mason, you're past the build part, and I'm not saying that you're done building. I think that you're still probably adding a lot to your platform, but now you're running. There's a part of being an entrepreneur where you're building and then running, and then there's places where you have to take a next step, and a lot of that step comes in funding. And I know one of the conversations we discussed, which was, can you reach the limits your goals want you to reach without the side of funding? That's something that I've been probably immaturely focused on and proud of, that I've never had to take money to be what I'm at. I've been able to self-fund my businesses. I've never had to take outside money. And when I've wanted to scale, I've been able to finance my own scaling and in a turn maintain a large percent of my equity. But by all means, I don't have anything that you ultimately are trying to build right now. So are you also going a similar route where I've had, where it's all self-funded, or is there a place where outside money, outside influence comes in? And if there is outside money, outside influence, what's your thought process around who you bring money in from, what role they play? Do they have a say? Or is their money just the voice? I'm sure you've thought about this.
Yeah, a lot. To start, I am like you. All of my business has been self-funded. I'm of that kind of grassroots kind of mentality of you should grow based on your sales, and your valuation should be based on numbers. But throughout my career and throughout my startups, by any measure would be considered a success to most, you still look out and see companies that baffle, most normally in the Silicon Valley world, where they've got these massive valuations, even in the auto space. For example, you look at someone emerging in a DMS world, CRM world like Techion, where they've got 1,000 stores on, and they're, I think, have a $4 billion valuation. And then you've got someone like PBS, which is basically, for all purposes, the same.
Yeah.
Actually better, to be honest with you. They've got 4,000 stores, and yet they probably have less than half that valuation.
Right, and dominate Canada. I mean, they dominate Canada.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we have kind of sat here, and I've talked to, all the people I've worked with, all the people I trust, and we've all kind of said, if we were ever going to play the valuation game, if we were ever going to reach those kind of heights, then we need to bring in expertise. So for us, because we are blue collar, I think that's an advantage to provide the revenue for that person who knows that valuation game can play off of, right? So with that said, I think if you want to hit the heights of $1 billion exit in something like 4 or 5 years, you're definitely going to need outside funding. There's no ability to scale. The hyper scaling that's required is expensive. And so with that said, that's the direction that we are heavily investing in ourselves, because we've got the product to ultimately deliver, and we've got the demand. That's the issue, is that we just need to put the pedal to the metal and go all out. So with the question about who we would take money from, initially, we're probably in that seed round. Still, I would characterize us. We could even be close to an A round, but I don't think we're going to pursue an A round until we're at $1 million a month. But the seed round, I think we're looking for players that ultimately understand the industry, understand the play, understand what we're about in terms of this quick exit. I know a lot of institutional money, they always want to be sold the big grand vision. They never want to hear, even though it's all about the bottom line, they don't want to hear $1 billion exit in 4 years. They want you to worry about the business, let the exit take care of itself. And then when the exit comes by way of Yahoo's offer at $1 billion, they're like, take it, take it, take it. But they don't want you talking about it until that offer's there, which I find quite annoying. But with that said, I think that who we would go with, I think at this point, we're going to try to see if our personalities will even jive in the institutional world. Because if this kind of comes back to the entrepreneur side, I think all of us here can agree that we would rather make $50,000 a year if you're the master of your own destiny,
Mm-hmm.
completely control everything about your life. No one tells you when to show up, when to leave, when to go to the bathroom. I think that all of us, push comes to shove, would choose that over, say, double that, but I have to listen to, someone above me tell me exactly what I need to do. And I think that that is an important consider here. And I think when taking investment, also an important thing to consider is investors are they're the bosses of the entrepreneur. We all have to, like, that's really our only boss is the investor. And so I think when choosing a boss, because I think when you choose a job, you choose your boss. I think we want to choose someone that is aligned with us, is on the same mission. And I think whether that's institutional or seed, they have to be aligned. But just to answer the question, I think more likely it's going to be seed. And I think with the growth here, and the opportunities that we have at our door, I think with a relatively small amount of seed funding, someone could create explosive revenue growth. So to talk to you, Matt, you self-funding, if you had virtually, I would say, anywhere from 250 to half a million, you could fund the revenue of up to at least $1 million a month for an A round, or fund it enough to where you could just self-fund from then on, right? If you had that initial kind of, if you wanted to scale to these kind of hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of revenue, I think you've got to think about where you're starting. If you're starting with 10,000, I mean, yes, you obviously can scale, but the rate of return is so much longer, right? If we start with 10,000, it takes us forever to get to 500,000. We start with 500,000, we're all of a sudden at 1 million and 2 million and 3 million within 6 months, 2-3 quarters, right? So I think that one thing I could kind of land on here is, I think I've done a lot of research on kind of what makes people successful, little things that can be gleaned. And I think the people that are most honest about, having money, people like in our position that got there, I think one takeaway that I took away is they commonly say once you have money, it's easy to make money. And I know that seems contrite and a little bit simplified, but it's like it's simple but profound. It's like once you have the capital, it's like you could go out and make $5 million next month because you got the capital to put in, and money always makes more money. So
Yeah, and look, we're not, as far as funding goes, and obviously we haven't got to that point yet of growing that. But I think one of the biggest mistakes from what I hear is that people who grab onto funding, they don't understand how to use it properly. I think that before you get to the point of knowing funding, you have to know exactly where that money's going to go and how it's going to be spent on to whatever. And I think a lot of people go, and what you hear about a lot of tech industries, or the people who had huge evaluations that failed, was they grabbed that money because they could, and then didn't know how to use it and lead a team to grow within it. They use it on whatever they wanted to after that. So we're here at the end of the hour here. So Mason, I want to just give you a chance real quick just to give a shout out on anything you want to, how people can reach out to you, how people can learn more about your business, and then we'll wrap up from there.
yeah, definitely. Well, you guys, if you're interested in any kind of automotive AI or custom projects, you can reach out to us at crowdsnare.com. Or if you're specifically automotive, we have a brand that we are building directly for automotive that caters nothing but automotive, and that's Rev AI, and that's REV-AI.ai. Horrible domain, but it's what we've got for now.
It doesn't matter. It works. If people can get to it, it works. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Mason. I appreciate that. Matt, well, if anybody is getting value like me and Matt just did, please like, subscribe, comment, share, click the bell icon. We drop this episode every Friday at 9 a.m. We'll see posts and content from this, but we'll have all the links for CrowdSnare, Rev AI, everything within our. If you want to learn more about Mason and his company, we'll give you those links over there. Please click on them and give us a shout about what you thought about the episode. Thank you guys so much.